Hello and welcome. G'day. Welcome back. Day number 3 of 30. I'm here again. After I finish this, I'll be 10% of the way through. It's a commitment I've made to you to turn up every day. It's not going to be the same time every day because I'm trying to fit this in with other things, and then I need to plan and prepare. I've got my notes here today, so I've normally try and keep this to 10 minutes. That's the plan, but I think I've got a lot to cover here. And as you've seen, the last two days, the first one we did straightening, and then we did what was the next one I did? Visual anchor and focal points or emphasis. And as you do, and as expected, each time I talk about something, I would throw in another compositional technique because a lot of it is closely related. And so I'm probably going to do that as well. Now, I did say yesterday that every time I talk about another compositional technique, I should have a ding that I've prepared one. Hopefully that didn't hurt. It's not too loud at my end, but I've just put that in there just for a bit of fun because yesterday I think I went through about 8 or 9 different compositional techniques all in the one session. All right, so what are we going to cover today? I'm going to cover what is the rule of thirds, why we use it, when we don't use it. And I fast-tracked this one towards the start here because Sam sent me an email. G'day, Sam, if you're watching the replay. And it was, he said, I know of the rule of thirds. I hear about it all the time. The phone has the grid lines or the grids, but I just don't quite understand what it is. So thank you, Sam. And if anyone else, throw in a comment there, and if there's something that you want me to fast track and put forward, then happy to do that. And g'day, Sally. Hey, good to see you. And it's very exciting when I go live and I get ready. I can see the number of people watching and or number of people waiting, and that might have been you, Sally. So g'day. All right, so that's what we're covering: the what, the why, when to use it, when not to use it. And if you stay to the end, that's a YouTube thing. If you stay to the end, then I also have some bonuses to include all kind of variations of the rule of thirds that a lot of people kind of miss, or because we focus so much on the rule of thirds, so we don't understand that there's actually variations of it that you can apply to different photos. Okay, and also, without getting too deep into it, I also want to showcase and introduce you to one of my favorite YouTube channels. So this particular YouTube channel, it's called Behind the Shot by Steve Brazill. He's the host, and then he has another image critique that they do every 2 weeks with Don Camaracha. I hope I got that right, Don. And both those shows that they run on the Behind the Shot channel is just fantastic. I find it really educational and inspirational. The depth of knowledge of those hosts is second to none, and it's just fantastic where Steve will actually interview the photographer, go through the photo. It's broadcast on both YouTube and podcast, and it's just actually, I have a snippet here, and I hope Steve doesn't mind. I've stripped the intro. It's probably best that he explains what it is, so I'll just play it here. You ready?
Hi, welcome to the show. I'm Steve Brazill, your host, and this is the show where we try and get inside the mind of great photographers by taking a closer look behind one of their shots from conception to completion, all the stories and challenges that happen in between, and I've got a great show lined up for you today.
How good's that? So that's what they do on that show. Is Steve gets in behind the shot, the thinking, the preparation, the execution, and quite often they do a deep dive in the composition, which is one of the sections that I really love. All right, so what is the rule of thirds? The rule of thirds is basically where we we split the image into 3 vertical sections and 3 horizontal sections. So it looks like this, where it looks like a tic-tac-toe board, doesn't it? Now, our phones have this built in. It is either called grid lines or grids. On the iPhone, you now have to go into the settings, and there's a section there called composition, and you can turn it on. On a lot of Android smartphones, I can't go into all of them, obviously, but a lot of Android smartphones, you need to open up the camera app, and then inside the camera app, when it's open and you can got the live preview, go into settings, and inside settings, you look down for grid lines, it's called in most of them that I'm aware of. And then once it's turned on, you have a live preview like this that you can actually has that overlay on top of the image. Now, I'll give you an example here, this photo here. Now, in this photo, the horizon is smack bang in the middle of this frame. Now, what does that do? What does that mean? Well, for me, when I'm looking at this, it's obvious that the pier is the main area that we want the viewer to look at. But when the horizon is in the middle like that, it's splitting our attention and our focus from the foreground and the sky. So it's not really obvious what the main thing is that you want the person to look at. Now, if I do this example here, so here I've recropped this photo, and now it's no question, because the horizon is on that. If I go back to here, see the horizon, or sorry, the horizontal lines, how there's two of them. So the first photo I showed you, the horizon was smack bang in the middle of the frame. Now this one here, the horizon is across that top section, okay? And then you've got this one here, where the horizon is now along that bottom horizontal line. Now what that does is it fills up 2/3 of the frame with either the foreground, which makes it clear, hey, this is the majority, this is where the emphasis is. We talked about emphasis yesterday. Or it's 2/3 of the photo is the sky. And if the sky is amazing, beautiful sunset, you've timed it perfectly, you've got great weather, that's the story, that's what you want to showcase, then that's perfect. Then you would crop it so that 2/3 of it is the sky. Now, I have another example here. Now, this one here is a duck. And you can see there, the horizon, yep, it's on that second line or the top line. And you can see that the duck is placed off center. Now, oh, here we go, ding. Because that's another compositional technique, is off center. And that's basically what we're doing with the rule of thirds, is we are placing the main subject, the hero of the shot, the visual anchor, the main element, whatever terminology you want to use, you're placing that off center. And then what that does is that gives the viewer space around that main element to kind of go exploring and look around the photo. And depending on which way the main subject is facing, here we've got the duck facing in towards the center. So that makes total sense that we've created space in front of the duck. All right, another one. Ding. That's getting pretty lame now, isn't it? I think I'm going to abolish the whole ding thing. If, for example, this duck was walking and it was walking across the scene from right to left, then this is perfectly placed again because we have space in front of the duck that we call active space. Now, there's three different types. There's the positive space, which is the space in the photo that the duck occupies. And then you have negative space, which is the space all around the duck. And then we have active space. And active space is the area that the subject moves into. There's a couple of reasons why we do that. One is we can see, from the storytelling perspective, we can see what they're walking towards, and it can create nice balance. It can create harmony with the environment. If you have them walking, so for example, that duck was facing the other way, and the beak was touching the edge of the frame. Can you imagine how that would kind of feel as a viewer? It would have visual tension, wouldn't it? Because I bring up the duck again. It has visual tension because if your eye goes to the duck, and then it would follow the line down the beak, and it would go to the edge of the frame, and there's nothing pulling your attention back. And we talked about this a lot yesterday. There's nothing pulling your attention back again to the middle of the frame, so that's why we have the duck positioned that way. All right. Now, this is one of those techniques that as soon as you start applying this, you will go through a bit of a... So we go along, we take happy snaps, snapshots, and we kind of just progress along. And then when we start introducing some of these compositional techniques, we go a bit of... our photos improve and they look more intentional and deliberate. And this is one of those ones where you get a real quick... I don't know what the word is, but you will have growth in your photography. Your photos will look a lot more intentional, strategic. They will go from a snapshot to an intentional, designed photograph. And it's probably one of the best tips to learn, because it's easiest to implement. And you're already doing this. You're already doing it. Like when you're at a location and you are taking a photo of yourself at this location, and you're taking a selfie. If you take selfies, if you don't, take more photos of yourself for your family. Taking a photo of yourself there, shooting over your shoulder, and you move off to the side, so that the viewer, even if it's yourself looking at the photos in years to come, or your family looking at these photos in years to come, when you move off to the side, off center, then you're showing them, hey, this is where I am. And that's what this is about. A rule of thirds, placing the main element off center, and then having those contextual visual elements, those focal points that provide context, provide extra visual cues to that visual storytelling that you're doing in your photos. So hopefully that makes sense. And then once you start doing that, I've got another example photo here, this one here. So you can see there I have the horizon across that top horizontal line, and then the boat there is on the vertical line on the left. Now I don't have it actually on there, but you can just visualize that those lines there. All right, so I've talked about when to use it. When do we not use it? Well, it depends on the story. It depends on the context. If you're taking a photo of a plate of food on a table at the restaurant, kind of makes no sense to put that off center and up in the corner of the frame if there's nothing else on the table. If you have a napkin there, cutlery pointing in, you have other dishes and other elements, visual elements kind of pointing towards that plate of food, then maybe it makes sense. If you get into symmetry, ding. I'm gonna delete that. If you have, if you want to have symmetry in your photos or reflections, things like that, there's sometimes the rule of thirds is not going to work. Now, this is one of those compositional techniques when I first started getting into composition that I kind of got hung up on it and tried to force it in a lot of my photos, and you just can't force these things. The whole purpose of my 4-step system, and this is in step number 2, the whole point of my 4-step system is to help you become more intuitive with your setup of your photo. So step number 1 is get your camera at the right height, the right angle, the right tilt. More importantly, the right distance, so you can zoom in and out with your feet, getting nice and close or back. Put a lens attachment on if you want to, or change the lens selection on your phone. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is this. Where do you place the main subject? All right. Step number 3 is where do you place or position, or thinking about where they position all the other contextual elements in the frame to have them all kind of relate to each other and create depth, all that sort of thing. And then step number 4 is editing. So yes, why is editing in a photo composition course? Well, it's there because for this example here, now if I wanted to crop a photo, and you've seen this in all your editor apps, your native camera app, when you edit a photo, when you select crop, this rule of thirds grid comes up every time, doesn't it? So that's why I've covered it in step number 4, because when you're cropping the photo, you can change the composition and dramatically improve it. Now, when I go and have the privilege of judging at camera clubs, and quite often that's after I've had a bit of a talk about smartphone photography and wowed them with all the things that our camera can do for us now, and some pretty funky apps that you can use. And on the competition nights, I will go through and give everyone feedback, and most of the feedback is composition. And then at the end, I give general feedback to everyone. Now, I use that term feedback. It's not really feedback. I just analyze and break down the photos and then try and judge them as objectively as I can. I have a system. You know me. I have systems. I have a system for that on the website that you can go and have a look at on how I judge camera clubs. But quite often when I'm giving the group assessment of common themes and trends that I found, the biggest one is cropping. Like cropping, it's so important, because then when you crop, you can reframe and you can reposition that main element to have that off center, either vertically or horizontally. All right. Another thing I wanted to cover here is see, see where the duck's eye, and we love eyes. The eyes are our connection. It's the way that we connect with the subject. See how it's on one of those intersecting points. Okay, it's along the vertical line and the horizontal line. So that eye is off center both horizontally and it's off center vertically. So it's perfectly positioned to provide space around the whole area. And by placing it on one of those 4 intersecting points, it's kind of the most powerful, strongest point to put it there. Okay. Next one here. And I promised if you stuck around to the end, I'd have another one here for you. This is a rule called 1/3, 2/3. So basically, this mushroom is on that line, the second the second vertical line, and it's occupying 2/3. Okay, so you saw here with the duck, that duck is occupying one focal point, or one intersecting point, and here this mushroom is occupying 2 of them. So it's occupying 2/3. So it's on 1/3 line and it's occupying 2/3. Now the reason for that is that visual weight and its emphasis. We talked about that yesterday. So see how this is what I love about composition, what I've discovered, and not many people talk about it, is that when you start implementing composition and you start stacking these techniques on top of each other, so this is emphasis, it's rule of thirds, it's off center, and we talked about here with this one here, it's negative space, it's active space. When you start breaking down a scene or looking at the photos that inspire you, and you can tick off all these compositional techniques. So with my system that has the 4 of them there, you can go along into each of the toolboxes and go, okay, toolbox number 1, positioning the camera, preparing the camera. What have they done in this photo? Or what can I do in this photo? Okay, bang, 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 bang. Okay, next one, bang, bang. Next one, bang, bang, bang. And then the 4th toolbox, the editing, you can clearly see that they've gone and changed through editing, brighter, saturated, blurred, and all these things that control your visual path through the photo. It's fascinating. I geek out on it. I hope you do too. But the system is there to make it simple for you and simplify it. Go through those steps, and then all of a sudden you can have 6, 10 different compositional techniques in the one photo, which is super cool. All right, what else did I have here? Let me have a quick look. Got my notes there. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Another one I have here, a square photo. So if you have a square photo, right, and you have the grid lines turned on, okay, and I always encourage you to have those on. Now, with a lot of our phones, you can tap on the arrow or, there's so many different phones, different ways. But basically, you can shoot in a square 1:1 format. And when you shoot in a 1:1 format and you have the grid or the grid lines turned on, it will be there perfectly balanced, perfectly spaced, exactly the same as it does for a 16:9 or a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is the native aspect ratio. When you have a square, what you want to do, those 4 intersecting points on a square, because everything is compressed into a square, my head doesn't move that well. It's not as flexible as that one, but a square, you can visualize that. When those lines are there, they're closer to the center, those 4 intersecting points. So to get that sense of off center, what I would encourage you to do and have a play around with it. Again, no right and wrong, just informing and helping you understand that if you place that main subject off center but move it closer to the edge of the frame, then it doesn't look like that you've placed it in the center. Okay, because you can see that you've intentionally moved it off center and you've created more space in that square photo. Because in a square photo, there's not much space to work with, is there? Okay. All right, what else did I have here? Boom, boom, boom. I think I've covered all that. Yep. Okay, I think I've covered all that. Now the link for the system and a bit of an update with the system. All the text has been finished. or the video. I've now finished recording, and I am 3/4 of the way through editing the video. It's up to about 4 hours of video, and like I've mentioned, having 4 hours of video is fantastic. It's going to be one of the most largest resources out there. But the system is what you get value, because I've got a section inside there where in less than an hour I have a learning path, if you like. In under an hour, you can read the most important parts of the system and participate in some exercises or projects or activities to kind of help understand what it is that the system is all about. So, yeah, it's really cool. I'm really excited that I'm so close to the text area, the text part of it. I have a proofreader going through it all now, and I've never done that with a course before. I have a proofreader go through it all, but this is eventually this content is going to end up being a book, which I'm really excited about. I really hope that I can do that. So I kind of need to go through that step. So at the moment, it's 50% off the system, and like I said, I'm probably 2 weeks away from finishing it. So that 50% off will no longer apply. So the link is down below, and yeah, but I've got another 27 days to turn up. So if you want to hang around for 30 days and watch me every day, I will probably deliver the whole system, the whole course, the whole content, more than 100 different compositional techniques and tools. I'll probably deliver that over the next 30 days. But as you know, it's not the way to learn. It's great to pick up a tip or here. But yeah, anyway, I think that'll do. I think we'll wrap it up there. Just over 20 minutes. So thanks for joining me again. Leave a comment there and a compositional technique you'd like me to talk about, and I'll endeavour to get onto that one quicker. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your week.